Yeah, great. So please start. Thank you
Okay.
so much. Please take over. Thank you.
Well, today we are going to discuss testicular germ cell tumor, update on histological perspective, as well as we will also discuss the preneoplastic lesions of penis and new histological entities in penile carcinoma. Myself, Dr. Indranil Das from Kolkata. The outline of the talk will be on specimen handling and grossing, update and morphological detailed discussion and reporting template. First, we will discuss the surgical anatomy of testis. The testis is an endocrine organ that is suspended in the scrotum by spermatic cord. The tunica is the serous covering of testis. The inner fibrous layer of tunica is called tunica albuginea, outer to which is tunica vaginalis. The anterior and the lateral border of the testis are entirely covered by the visceral layer of tunica vaginalis, which is deficient on the posterior aspect where the spermatic cord is attached. The epidermis is attached on the lateral border of the testis. Now, specimen handling and grossing. The commonest received specimen for testicular tumor is high inguinal orchidectomy. First, after receiving the specimen, we need to prefix it. Then we have to describe the specimen. First, we have to take the measurement of the length of spermatic cord, then ink the cord cut margin and take a shave margin. Then reflect the parietal tunica. Note if there is any presence of hydrocele or adhesion. Then measure the testis. Then bivalve it through testis and epidermis. Check for presence of a tumor. Then describe the tumor regarding its location, color, consistency, presence of any hemorrhage, and as well as tumor measurement. You have to also note for presence of any cartilaginous area or hair structure or tooth in the tumor. Now the sections to be submitted are the different areas of testicular tumor, at least 4 sections, then tumor with different layers of tunica, then native testis to look for any germ cell neoplasia in situ, then epidermis or tumor with epidermis if the tumor has grossly involved the epidermis, then base of the spermatic cord and the cord cut margin. Now, first we will discuss certain major changes in the World Health Organization 2016 classification of testicular germ cell tumor. The changes has been made in collaboration with International Society of Urological Pathology. The major changes are introduction of a new term that is called germ cell neoplasia in situ. It is a precursor lesion. The distinction between the prepubertal germ cell tumor and the postpubertal germ cell tumor has been made. The postpubertal type of germ cell tumors are associated with germ cell neoplasia in situ. The new name of spermatocytic seminoma is spermatocytic tumor, as this tumor is completely unrelated to the conventional or classical seminoma. And epithelioid and placental site ophoblastic tumor are 2 new categories. Some cases have been described in the classification of ophoblastic tumor of the testis. Previously, only choriocarcinoma was included in this subtype. And last but not the least, the reporting of anaplasia in seminoma or spermatocytic seminoma or immaturity in teratoma is not required nowadays. The significance of other form of intertubular neoplasia is less clearly understood. Now, the intertubular seminoma is different from germ cell neoplasia in situ in fact that in the morphological features that in intertubular seminoma, the entire seminiferous tubule is filled with the seminoma type cells. And in contrast to the in situ germ cell neoplasia, the tubular architecture is lost, the Sertoli cells are absent, and tubules are expanded in diameter. In GCNI, the expansion of the tubule doesn't occur. In intertubular embryonal carcinoma, there is complete filling of pre-existing seminiferous tubules by embryonal carcinoma cells, and it is often accompanied by intertubular necrosis and calcification. Now, this is the histopathological picture of germ cell neoplasia in situ. The cells are located in the niche of spermatogonia. This can be highlighted by IC study. They are present in the one layer. The nuclei appears as string of bead, and later the GCNI cells are stacked in several layers, and in course of the disease, they give rise to the intertubular seminoma or any intertubular embryonal carcinoma or intertubular germ cell tumor. This is OC3 for ISS 10 highlighting the GCNI cells. Now, 2016 classification of testicular germ cell tumor according to WHO, that is mainly they have been divided into two categories, that is GCNI derived and non-GCNI derived. The GCNI unrelated tumors are spermatocytic tumor, the prepubertal type of teratomas and prepubertal type of yolk sac tumor. The rest of the tumor, that is seminoma with syncytial trophoblast-like giant cells, or postpubertal type of yolk sac tumor, postpubertal type of teratoma, embryonal cell carcinoma or embryonal carcinoma, and the trophoblastic tumor all come under the category of germ cell tumors derived from GCNI or germ cell neoplasia in situ. First, we will discuss the seminoma, the most common germ cell tumor. They may also be present as a part of mixed germ cell tumor. The peak age incidence is between 34 to 45 years. The cut section is light tan, moist, and homogeneous in appearance. There is extensive necrosis, hemorrhage, cyst formation are not found. If grossly there is presence of necrosis, hemorrhage, and cyst formation, the alternative possibility of embryonal carcinoma should be taken in mind. Now, under histopathological examination, the seminoma usually show a multinodular pattern of growth. The tumor cells have abundant clear cytoplasm with well-defined cytoplasmic borders and nuclei with prominent nucleoli. Sometimes ill-defined granulomatous reactions may be seen in seminoma. There may be nested pattern of growth. The nests are separated by fibrous septa. These fibrous septa are infiltrated by mature lymphocyte, that is T lymphocyte, and mitosis are quite frequent. This is a case of seminoma showing granulomatous reaction characterized by collection of epithelioid cells. Now, sometimes syncytial trophoblast-like cells are found in the seminoma, and these cases may show modest increase in the beta HCG level in the serum, but they lack the association with mononuclear trophoblastic component. This is the distinguishing feature with choriocarcinoma. Anaplasia may be present in the seminoma with syncytial trophoblast-like giant cell, and anaplasia is characterized by vesicular nuclei and increased mitotic activity, but the prognostic impact of anaplasia is not clear, and the mentioning of anaplasia in seminoma nowadays is not recommended, as I already told. But it is possible that these atypical cytological features may represent the transition of seminoma from poorly differentiated tumor like embryonal carcinoma. Now, what are the differential diagnosis and variation in the growth pattern of seminoma? We have to differentiate between seminoma, atypical seminoma with embryonal carcinoma or yolk sac tumor or clear cell sex chromosomal tumor. I will discuss one by one. Now, first, atypical seminoma versus embryonal carcinoma. Seminoma and embryonal carcinoma are closely related entity. The seminoma resembles embryonic germ cells. Embryonic germ cells of embryonal carcinoma resembles pluripotent stem cells. Both tumors express OCT3/4 and NANOC, but there is certain difference in the treatment. That's why differentiation is very important. The seminomas are sensitive to both radiation and cisplatin-based chemotherapy, whereas embryonal carcinoma is particularly responsive to chemotherapy. Now, embryonal carcinoma usually consists of anaplastic tumor cells with larger, crowded, irregular nuclei, more dense amphophilic cytoplasm, and less distinct cell membrane. The cells are more cohesive than they are in seminoma and may be arranged in the trabecular, glandular, papillary, or solid pattern. The helpful light microscopic clue of an atypical seminoma is that the retention of the typical tumor architecture in some other places with lymphocytic reaction and absence of any distinct epithelial differentiation. Now, tubular variant of seminoma sometimes get confused with gland-forming embryonal carcinoma, but tubular structures formed in seminoma are basically pseudoglandular arrangement without any true glandular lumen that is found in embryonal carcinoma. And on ISC study, the embryonal cell carcinoma cell are positive for pancytokeratin and CD30 and negative for CD117 and podoclanin. Now, seminoma versus yolk sac tumor. The yolk sac tumor are radio resistant, so its differentiation from seminoma is necessary. As I told, the main mode of therapy in seminoma is radiotherapy. There may be tubular or microcystic pattern of growth in seminoma that may be reminiscent of yolk sac tumor, but gland, as I said, the glands in the seminoma are pseudogland, but in contrast, the yolk sac tumor grow in a separated or merged two gland with well-defined lumen and a sharp luminal border. The microcystic pattern in seminoma is due to intertumoral edema. Detached tumor cells floating in the edema fluid may appear as microcystic may show microcystic histological features, but the microcystic structure in yolk sac tumor are formed by either myxoid stroma or empty vacuole, and the tumor cells bordering the microcystic spaces are characteristically flattened. A yolk sac tumor may also grow in the solid seeds with clear cytoplasm and distinct cell membrane similar to seminoma, but seminoma cells are not as pleomorphic as yolk sac tumor cells. The intracytoplasmic hyaline globules are a characteristic feature of yolk sac tumor, and on ISC study, the yolk sac tumors are positive for glypican-3, alpha-fetoprotein, and pancytokeratin, and negative for OCT3 or 4, that is positive in seminoma. Now, seminoma versus clear cell sex cord stromal tumor. The Sertoli cell tumor and the Reddick cell tumor can grow in a solid pattern of growth with diffuse clear cell changes. As sex cord stromal tumor are not responsive to chemoradiation, their distinction is also mandatory. The prominent lymphocytic reaction and water clear cytoplasm can be seen in clear cell sex cord stromal tumor. This is the source of diagnostic confusion. But the clear cell sex cord stromal tumor lack the thin fibrous septa and the granulomatous reaction that is commonly seen in the seminoma. Moreover, compared to seminoma cells, the sex cord stromal tumor cells do not show polygonal nuclei, prominent nuclei, or frequent mitotic figure. The nuclei of sex cord stromal tumor are usually smaller. They are round to oval and with irregular nuclear membrane. They may show more anisonucleosis. They are not monomorphic like seminoma cells. Sometimes they may have intranuclear cytoplasmic inclusions. Now, ISC of seminoma, they are positive for OCT4 and CD117, as well as placental alkaline phosphatase, and beta HCG may be positive in case of seminoma bearing syncytial trophoblast like giant cells. Next, we will discuss the spermatocytic tumor. The age of presentation is slightly older than the seminoma, the age of presentation of seminoma. It solely occur in the testis and doesn't occur in the retroperitoneum or mediastinum as may happen in case of seminoma. This tumor lack the chromosome 12p amplification, but they show a characteristic DMRT1 gene amplification that is present on the telomeric end of chromosome sortum of chromosome 9. The pattern of growth is multinodular with cellular tumor nodule lack the fibrous septa and lymphocytic infiltrate of seminoma. Edema may be a striking feature of spermatocytic tumor and is responsible for formation of follicle-like areas. At high magnification, the characteristic tripartite morphology is appreciable. although this may be only a focal finding, and in some that may have a predominance of intermediate size cell with prominent nucleoli. The cellular apoptosis is often prominent in spermatocytic tumor, often occurring in small cluster. The spermatocytic tumor is positive for CD117, SAL4, and DMRT1, but OCT34 or placental alkaline phosphatase, alpha fetoprotein, human chorionic gonadotropin, and CD30 are negative in spermatocytic tumor. Embryonal carcinoma. The pure embryonal carcinoma is the second most common single cell type germ cell tumor after seminoma. The embryonal carcinoma as a component is however present in more than 80% of the mixed germ cell tumor. The age group of presenting age group is between 25 and 35 years of age, which is quite earlier than seminoma. There is painless unilateral enlargement of the testicular mass. 2/3 of the cases present with retroperitoneal lymph node or distant metastasis at the time of presentation. Grossly, they appear as a poorly demarcated mass with soft gray tan cut surface, frequently associated with larger foci of hemorrhage and necrosis. On microscopic examination, there is variable growth pattern, including solid, syncytial, acinar, tubular, or papillary pattern of growth. The anaplasia is marked with numerous mitotic figures, including atypical mitotic figures, and the neoplastic cells are polygonal, undifferentiated, epithelial looking, and they have large vesicular empty looking nuclei and thick distinct nuclear membrane with abundant finely granular cytoplasm and with a non-distinct cell border. The adjacent tissue may show intertubular embryonal carcinoma. This tumor is positive for pancytokeratin, PLAP, and OCT34, but protoplanin, CD117, and EMA are negative in embryonal carcinoma, in contrast to the seminoma, and CD30 is the sensitive marker for embryonal carcinoma, and it is not positive in any other germ cell tumor. But one fallacy is that the expression of CD30 may be lost in metastatic site or after chemotherapy. Now, York-Sac tumor. This tumor can be broadly classified into two categories, that is prepubertal and postpubertal. Morphologically, these two types are not distinct, but the prepubertal type of teratoma is differentiated from the postpubertal type by the absence of germ cell neoplasia in situ, these genetic testicular changes, and 12 chromosome 12p amplification. The prepubertal type, York-Sac tumor often show gaining of chromosome 1q, 12p, 20q, chromosome 22, or losses of chromosome 1p, 4, 6q, or 16p. Though rare, the prepubertal type of York-Sac tumor may occur in the postpubertal men. Now, York-Sac tumor is a germ cell neoplasm that differentiate in the direction of embryonic York-Sac, allantois, or extraembryonic mesenchyme. It is the most common testicular neoplasm in the pediatric population, accounting for approximately half of the cases. The childhood York-Sac tumor, that is prepubertal York-Sac tumor, is not associated with cryptorchidism or germ cell neoplasia in situ. The York-Sac tumor in children usually occur in the pure form, and they are not usually associated with any mixed germ cell tumor. The median age of presentation in children is 16 months, the range being newborn to 11 years. The serum alpha fetoprotein is often elevated. It is a marker for treatment monitoring and checking the recurrence of York-Sac tumor. Grossly, this tumor presents as solid, lobulated, gray-white, soft, ill-defined mass with gelatinous to mucinous cut surface. Areas of hemorrhage, necrosis, and cystic changes may be present. This tumor may show a spectrum of histopathological pattern of growth, including reticular, that is microcystic, vacuolated, or honeycomb, macrocystic, endodermal sinus type, papillary, solid, glandular alveolar, myxoid, sarcomatoid, hepatoid, or parietal pattern of growth. The reticular microcystic pattern is the most common feature. In this pattern of growth, there is anastomosing thin cords and irregular loose spaces lined by deceptively benign appearing flat or cuboidal tumor cells. Cytoplasmic vacuoles are seen within the tumor cells and they form a meshwork of vacuolated lipoblasts-like appearance. Ciliar duval body sometimes present. This is characterized by central fibrovascular core surrounded by malignant cuboidal to columnar cells. The important histological finding is the presence of round, homogeneous, diastase-resistant, PAS-positive hyaline globules, which contains alpha-fetoprotein as well as alpha-1 antitrypsin. This is hyaline globule. The yolk sac tumor, as I mentioned, may show different pattern of growth. This is hepatoid pattern resembling the hepatocytes. This is solid pattern of growth. This is polyvesicular vitelline pattern of growth, and this is the papillary pattern of growth. The polyvesicular vitelline pattern is characterized by prominent cysts lined by flattened or columnar cells within a variably cellular stroma. In the solid pattern, there is sheet-like arrangement of the tumor cells, and in the hepatoid pattern, there is scattered small clusters or pods of large polygonal cells with abundant eosinophilic cytoplasm with prominent nucleoli, and they are separated by thin fibrous septa. This is IHC for yolk sac tumor. This tumor is positive for AFP and glypican-3. PAN-CK and SAL4 are also positive. Now teratoma. This germ cell tumor can also be of prepubertal and postpubertal type. The pubertal type germ cell tumor for treatment and prognostic purpose, it is especially important to distinguish the prepubertal form of testicular teratoma from the postpubertal one, because the prepubertal teratomas are benign, but the postpubertal testicular teratoma are not benign. They may behave in a malignant fashion. Because the prepubertal type of teratomas may occasionally be discovered in the post-pubertal males, age alone cannot serve to discriminate between these two entities. For differentiation, we need to check the morphologies carefully, and we also may have to take help of molecular study to check for whether there is any 12 pre-amplification or not, that is found in post-pubertal type of teratoma. This is prepubertal type of teratoma. This is basically an epidermoid cyst. This is an example of prepubertal teratoma. The feature of prepubertal teratoma include the presence of ciliated epithelium, absence of the cytological atypia, germ cell neoplasia in situ, dysgenetic testicular parenchyma, or any testicular scar. There is also frequent occurrence of organoid tissue arrangement, prominently ciliated epithelium, nest of squamous epithelium, smooth muscles, and occasional presence of salivary gland or pancreatic acinar differentiation. This zymogen granule showing pancreatic acinar differentiation. Now, as I said, the epidermoid cyst and the dermoid cyst are two examples of prepubertal type of teratoma. In epidermoid cyst, it is basically an encapsulated cyst lined by keratinized stratified flat epithelium without any adnexal structures. But in dermoid cyst, the adnexal structures of skin are present. In addition, other structures may also be seen. Now, well-differentiated neuroendocrine tumor, it is an example of monodermal teratoma. This may be associated with other teratomatous element. It occurs both in adult and in children. The pure form of the tumor appears grossly as solid tan to yellow nodule. If teratoma is present, associated cyst formation may be seen. Microscopically, they show well-defined and solid nests and acini composed of cells with granular eosinophilic cytoplasm, round nuclei with salt pepper chromatin. Behavior is benign, except in case of atypical carcinoid. In atypical carcinoid, necrosis and increased mitotic activity in the range of 2 to 10 mitosis per 10 high power field are seen. This is the post-pubertal type of teratoma, characterized by cyst formation and whitish gray nodule of cartilage. Any epithelial or mesenchymal type tissue can be present, as well as the neural tissues. The organoid arrangement characteristic of skin, respiratory tract, gastrointestinal tract, or genitourinary tract are seen in the lesser amount than prepubertal teratoma. The primitive mitotically active cellular stroma, this is primitive mitotically active cellular stroma cuffing the glands are seen. The fetal or embryonic tissue, particularly immature neuroepithelial tissues, are sometimes found. Now, a teratoma with somatic type malignancy. A teratoma with somatic type malignancy is a teratoma that develops a distinct secondary component that resembles a somatic type malignant neoplasm, maybe in the form of carcinoma or sarcoma. But we have to keep in mind that the teratoma itself may show this significant atypia in its cell component, but the teratoma showing atypia in cell component will be of some organoid admixture of various elements, but the somatic malignancy arising from teratoma will show a pure population of atypical mesenchymal or epithelial cells that occupies at least one low power field. The rhabdomyosarcoma is the most common type of somatic malignancy that arises from teratoma. The squamous cell carcinoma, neuroendocrine carcinoma, or any other poorly differentiated carcinoma may also be found in somatic type malignancy arising from teratoma. Now we will discuss the trophoblastic tumor. That is first and the most common is choriocarcinoma. Differentiate to resemble the trophoblastic cells of extra embryonic chorion, including syncytial trophoblastic cells or intermediate trophoblastic cells. These two cells are mononuclear cells, and syncytial trophoblastic cells, these are multinucleated cells. Mostly they present as part of mixed germ cell tumor. Pure form of choriocarcinoma is little bit rare in the testis. The beta HCG is always elevated, and the beta HCG has a structural similarity with luteinizing hormone as well as TSH. So a patient of choriocarcinoma sometimes may present with gynecomastia or thyroidopsicosis. Now, morphologically, the choriocarcinoma is a biphasic tumor. It is composed of mononuclear trophoblast, maybe cyto or intermediate trophoblast, as well as multinucleated syncytial trophoblast. The background is hemorrhagic. Plexiform aggregate or protrusions reminiscent of early placental villus growth without stromal pores may be seen. The cytotrophoblasts have clear to lightly eosinophilic cytoplasm with distinct cell boundaries, slightly irregular nuclei, and one or more multiple prominent nuclei. And they display numerous mitotic figures. The syncytial trophoblasts are large, deeply eosinophilic cells with multinucleation, and the nuclei are often smudgy and hyperchromatic. They may have a spindled or elongated appearance. The monophasic choriocarcinoma consists of sheets of cytotrophoblast with a paucity of syncytial trophoblast. There may be central necrosis, hemorrhage, vascular invasion, and Leydig cell hyperplasia. Choriocarcinoma is the most aggressive form of germ cell tumor. They have a proclivity of tendency of early hematogenous spread, higher stage at presentation, and hemorrhagic complications. Now, as I said, the non-choriocarcinomatous trophoblastic tumors are new entrant under the spectrum of trophoblastic tumor of testis. The placental site trophoblastic tumor, the placental site trophoblastic tumor, and the epithelial trophoblastic tumor are two non-choriocarcinomatous trophoblastic tumor. The PSTT consists of infiltrative single or loosely cohesive implantation type intermediate trophoblast with abundant eosinophilic or vacuolated cytoplasm and irregular dense smudge nuclei. The epithelial trophoblastic tumor is consists of cords of squamoid-looking chorionic type intermediate trophoblast with eosinophilic or clear cytoplasm, prominent cell border, and hyaline matrix. This somewhat glassy appearance in the cytoplasm is found in epithelial trophoblastic tumor. Mixed germ cell tumor, 60% of the germ cell tumors are mixed. There may be combination of teratoma with embryonal carcinoma and yolk sac tumor, or there may be combination of seminoma with embryonal carcinoma or teratoma with embryonal carcinoma. During reporting, in case of a mixed germ cell tumor, we need to mention the percentage of a particular component in the reporting template. Now the reporting template, the report should contain the following points, that is specimen laterality, tumor focality, tumor size, histological type. As I said, in case of mixed germ cell tumor, the tumor percentage of each component should be mentioned, the tumor extension, whether the tumor has involved the epidermis or not, or whether it has extended into the tunica or the scrotal skin, the margin status, particularly spermatic cut margin, presence or absence of lymphovascular invasion, lymph node status, and the TNM staging. Now, to summarize the testicular germ cell tumor, the 2016 update to the WHO classification has introduced a number of changes and refinements of the classification of germ cell tumors. The most notable change is the inclusion of germ cell neoplasia in situ as a replacement for IGCNU, intertubular germ cell neoplasia unclassified, and carcinoma in situ. There is structuring the overall classification. There is renaming of spermatocytic seminoma as spermatocytic tumor, as this spermatocytic tumor is completely different from seminoma on the morphological pattern as well as on the clinical behavior. The category of non-choriocarcinomatous trophoblastic tumor has been introduced, and there is growing evidence for the existence of benign teratoma of postpubertal testes, termed as prepubertal type teratoma in postpubertal men, supported by their organoid growth pattern, absence of cytological atypia, lack of association with GCNI, or regressive changes or testicular degenetic changes, and as I said, absence of germ cell neoplasia in situ. Now, the next step of the discussion, I will discuss some preneoplastic lesion of the penis and HPV-related penile carcinomas. The first will discuss the foreskin anatomy. There are 5 distinct layers of foreskin, that is epidermis, dermis, below dermis, that is dartos muscle, then lamina propria, then squamous mucosal layer. Now, first, the benign and preneoplastic lesions of penis. The most common and important is lichen sclerosus. This condition was first described by Stammer in 1928, and it was termed as balanitis xerotica obliterans, referring to the Greek word xeros, mean dry, and obliterate, mean to efface. There is chronic progressive inflammatory condition characterized by lymphocytic response with a bimodal distribution affecting young boy as well as middle-aged men. There is thinning of epidermis with hyperkeratosis and dense subepidermal hyalinization. The differential diagnosis is lichen planus. In early stage of lichen sclerosus, dense lymphocytic infiltration may be seen adjacent to the just beneath the mucosal lining. Next, this plasma cell balanitis. It is also known as balanitis circumscripta plasmacellularis. first described by Zoon, a Dutch dermatologist in 1952. It presents as a well-defined erythematous plaque with purpuric spot, creating a canny pepper appearance in the glands and foreskin. There is epidermal atrophy, spongiosis, that means intra-epidermal edema, and effacement of retidines. Within the dermis, there is dense infiltrate of plasma cells, along with ectatic, that means dilated blood vessels, and pigment incontinence. Reactive cytological atypia may be present, mimicking differentiated penile intraepithelial neoplasia. Now, condyloma acuminatum. These condyloma are warty, exophytic, squamophorophytic, sexually transmitted lesion. They may involve any part of the anogenital region. Reticulated arborescent papillomatous squamous proliferation with fibrovascular core are found. Deep margin is rounded and smooth. There may be hyperkeratosis, poilocytosis, and intraepidermal keratin cyst. Epidermal maturation is an essential feature. The Buschke-Launstein tumor is also known as Jan condyloma. It is a variant of condyloma acuminatum. Now, the penile intraepithelial neoplasia is the precursor lesion of invasive squamous cell carcinoma and now replaces the previously used different terminologies, including erythroplasia of Poirot, squamous cell carcinoma in situ, Bowen's disease, or Bayonet papillosis. WHO classified penile intraepithelial neoplasia into two categories depending upon the association with HPV. That is differentiated penile intraepithelial neoplasia is characterized as a non-HPV related tumor, and undifferentiated penile intraepithelial neoplasia is basically a HPV related, and they may show warty or basaloid morphology. This is differentiated penile intraepithelial neoplasia. They tend to develop in slightly older, uncircumcised men with a history of long-standing lichen sclerosis, and they preferentially affect the inner foreskin. There is presence of epithelial hyperplasia, hyperkeratosis, parakeratosis, elongation, and anastomosis of vitelliges. Keratin pearl and prominent intercellular bridges are seen. Surface maturation and hypergranulosis with hyperchromatic atypical cells confined to the basal and parabasal layers are found. The high power view, the scattered full thickness yet subtle atypical keratinocyte with abundant eosinophilic cytoplasm, vesicular nuclei, and prominent nucleoli are found. Lichen sclerosus may be present in the background, but P16 and HPV immunohistochemistry is invariably negative in differentiated variety of penile intraepithelial neoplasia. The undifferentiated penile intraepithelial neoplasia include warty basaloid or warty basaloid pattern of growth. They usually affect the younger men. This is basically flat lesion and show abrupt parakeratosis. The epithelium is entirely replaced by monotonous population of small to intermediate sized basophilic cells with oval to round hyperchromatic nuclei and raised nucleocytoplasmic ratio. Poilocytes, numerous mitosis, and apoptotic bodies are found. The basaloid subtype of undifferentiated pain is associated with HPV infection. There are certain subtypes, as I mentioned, warty penile intraepithelial neoplasia. There is undulating or spiky or papillary surfaces of epithelial hyperplasia with marked parakeratosis, full thickness cellular pleomorphism, dyskeratosis, and atypical poilocytes. Unlike basaloid penile intraepithelial neoplasia, some epithelial surface maturation may be found. The warty basaloid penile intraepithelial neoplasia shows a mixture of cellular and architectural features. The surface is normally undulating and spiky. The upper portion of the lesion may show a surface maturation, and large atypical cells with occasional scattered poilocytes are seen in the upper part. The lower half of the epithelium is replaced by small monotonous population of basaloid cells. High-grade HPV infection and P16 positivity is normally found in undifferentiated penile intraepithelial neoplasia. Now, what are the diagnostic challenges or differential diagnosis in penile intraepithelial neoplasia? First is benign squamous hyperplasia. The identification of the basal cell atypia, abnormal squamous maturation, parakeratosis are highly suggestive of penile intraepithelial neoplasia. The immunohistochemistry may also prove useful. P16 is expected to be negative in differentiated pain and benign squamous hyperplasia, and it is positive in case of undifferentiated penile intraepithelial neoplasia. Now, bionoid papillosis, it's basically histologically included in the penile intraepithelial neoplasia, but I have mentioned this as the clinical presentation is sometimes a little bit different. They may appear as multiple papillar lesions on the anogenital region. HPV16 is the etiological factor. Histologically, these lesions show hyperplastic squamous epithelium with varying degree of cytological atypia, maybe in the form of full thickness proliferation of fully differentiated cells. The dyskeratotic cells, mitotic figures, and poilocytosis are normally present, but most cases fortunately regress spontaneously. This is the 2016 classification of pain and invasive penile squamous cell carcinoma. These are the HPV-related tumor. This is warty basaloid or warty basaloid subtypes, and this is the non-HPV-related, the usual type papillary carcinoma, pseudohyperplastic carcinoma, pseudoglandular carcinoma, adenosquamous, sarcomatoid carcinoma, and mixed carcinoma. Now, we will discuss few of them. The first is pseudohyperplastic carcinoma. Microscopically, there is downward proliferation of epithelial nests, simulating the pattern of growth of pseudoepitheliomatous hyperplasia. We need to be very cautious during the diagnosis of pseudohyperplastic carcinoma, because pseudoepitheliomatous hyperplasia secondary to different reactive conditions may simulate this type of carcinoma. The surface is usually flat or slightly irregular and frequently hyperkeratotic. Neoplastic cells are extremely well differentiated with minimal basal or parabasal atypia. The squamous maturation and keratinization is gradual. Cytoplasm of the neoplastic cells are ample with eosinophilic cellular cytoplasm. Cellular boundaries are well defined. Chronic inflammatory response may be present in the background. The squamous hyperplasia or penile intraepithelial neoplasia or lichen sclerosus are frequently observed in the adjacent tissue. Now, next entity is carcinoma cuniculatum. This tumor show a barrow-like growth pattern. It's composed of tumor nest with extremely well differentiated epithelial cells with ample of eosinophilic cytoplasm and distinct cell border. Papillomatosis, acanthosis, and hyperkeratosis are very common. Cyst-like structures filled with keratin debris are common finding. The interface between the tumor and the stroma sharply defined, and there was a mild to severe chronic inflammatory response. High-grade areas, vascular or perennial invasion are not found. The differential diagnosis of carcinoma cuniculatum include other vericiform tumors, especially verrucous and warty carcinomas. Now, pseudoglandular or acantholytic carcinoma. Under microscopic examination, this tumor shows pseudogland. These are basically pseudolumina filled with desquamated malignant cells, keratin, amorphous eosinophilic material. An interesting feature is the intracytoplasmic vacuoles clustered to form colorate structures. Vascular and perennial invasion are frequent finding. Associated penile intraepithelial neoplasia may be present in the adjacent tissue. The pseudoglandular carcinoma should be differentiated from adenosquamous carcinoma or adenocarcinoma of the periurethral glands or urothelial carcinoma with glandular differentiation. Now, clear cell carcinoma is a highly invasive tumor. The neoplastic cells are large, polygonal, with cellular borders are well defined. Cytoplasm is clear to faintly eosinophilic. there are presence of some areas of geographic or comedonecrosis. Neoplastic cells are PAS, pancytokeratin, MARC1, and EMA positive. There is frequent vascular invasion. HPV-related changes may be seen in certain number of cases. The differential diagnosis include clear cell urothelial carcinoma, metastatic renal cell carcinoma, and sebaceous carcinoma. Now, papillary not otherwise specified carcinoma, the papillomatosis, mild to moderate acanthosis, and as well as hyperkeratosis are seen. Polycytosis is absent, and the tumor is not HPV related. Most tumors are well to moderately differentiated. High-grade areas may be focally present. Areas of squamous hyperplasia, differentiated penile intraepithelial neoplasia or lichen sclerosus are frequently present in the adjacent mucosa. This papillary carcinoma should also be differentiated from other verruciform tumors. This is a Warty basaloid carcinoma, the HPV-related tumor. Three patterns of growth may be found. That is mixed exophytic, non-papillomatous, or predominantly papillomatous pattern of growth. The basaloid cells are located at the bottom half of the papilla, whereas the Warty component line superficial part. The Warty basaloid carcinoma frequently invade deep erectile tissue, and the tumors limited to the lamina propria are rare. Basically, the deeply invasive tumor. Vascular and perineal invasion are common, as well as some foci of basaloid or Warty penile intraepithelial neoplasia may be found. The Warty basaloid carcinoma should be distinguished from pure form of Warty or basaloid carcinomas. So, the proper allocation of these recently described entities, along with further data on treatment response and prospective follow-up information, will provide clue of the necessary for defining their optimum clinical management. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Indranil, for a wonderful, extremely detailed lecture. Thank you for the hard work which you have really put in. It can be very clearly seen on the extensive, slides which you have prepared and the knowledge which you have shared with us. Thank you so much. God bless you. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.